Hi guys, so this video is going to be on how to write a perfect essay. Now obviously this is just how I write an essay, so it's going to be how to do an essay in an Oxford style, if that makes sense. So I've got a list of things on my phone, and I've also got clips from while I was writing my own essay, which sometimes went well and most of the time didn't. But this is like how I go about it and how we get taught how to do our essays, so hopefully this should help if you're struggling. So first off is the pre-reading. Now at Oxford we get a big long list, sometimes up to about 10 books long, with pre-reading. Just so you can get an idea of the amount of reading. Woo! Green is the ones I've done, red is the ones that I couldn't find or have actually done that purple one but I've forgotten to change it. And often it has page numbers, sometimes it has chapters, but a lot of the time it has nothing and you have to find the chapter yourself in the index or the contents, and that's part of the skill really. So say my last essay was on Paleolithic art because I do archaeology, and I had a big thick book about this thick, and I had to spend a good 15 minutes looking through all the different contents to try and find something that was specifically on my topic, because often the chapters are quite vaguely named and you have to read a bit, skim read a bit yourself to try and find it. So I think that's the hardest part about the pre-reading, is finding exactly what you need to do and also the time you have to spend on it, because it's the most time consuming part. For example, for this essay I've spent 2 full days in Manchester Library while I've been home. And I still have a lot of work to do, so I'm off to the library. I was just reading the books. I had about, probably about 9 or 10, and 2 of them I couldn't actually find because they weren't in the library. They were only in the Bodleian in Oxford, which has every book ever, so of course they'd be in there. But I don't have access to that now, and that's fine. And our tutor said we don't have to read every book. You never have to read every book unless specified, because you can write an essay out of 5 books if you back up your points well. So yeah, what I would say is put a day at least aside, maybe 2, to spend in the library or on your laptop, because a lot of them are online. Finding the reading, finding your research. So if you're doing science, it's all research based rather than reading mainly, I think. Don't quote me on that because I don't do science. But yeah, and also make sure you write down every single page number that you have taken research from, because for the first week or so of my essays I completely forgot to do that and had to go back when I was writing it so I could cite the page. Very annoying, and much easier if you just do it when you were actually reading. Okay, so what's next? Planning. Okay, so planning is my second point. Now, for plans, the first thing I'm going to say is they're probably the most important thing you can do when you're writing an essay. I never ever used to plan because I thought it was too time consuming. I was pretty good at writing an essay on the spot. I was naturally quite able to structure my essays, but that was before I got to Oxford, and everyone is good at doing that. So it's quite a phenomenon getting thrown into a place where once you were always pretty above average, and now you are on the par with everyone else, if not worse. So you really have to up your game. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got a really bad cold. So planning, because of that, is essential. And I would say, looking back on, say, my A-levels, planning, if you're doing even a GCSE essay, is still essential, because it means you get the perfect structure. And it means your ideas flow and you're not just kind of mumbling on because you've forgotten you've already said that point. You know, I'm just going to stop here. I'm going to blow my nose and come back. So how I personally plan is I split it into the different books, and I make sure that I've got each book title and then each key points from each of the books, so I know what key points belong to which book. When I come to write them in the exam, I know exactly which one I'm citing where. That's the first thing. That is by no means the whole plan. That is just to sort your ideas out so that it's not just in your face and spread across the whole table. So what I tend to do next after I've split them is look back at the question really carefully, because sometimes if the tutor's feeling nice, they've written a big paragraph about what they want to see in your essay. Now, they don't always do this, in fact it's quite rare, but my last essay they did do that. I'm very grateful, because it meant that I could then split my plan into each of these individual questions and then link books and facts that I've remembered to all these different things, and I'll show you that now. So this is the essay that I'm writing, and as you can see in this passage there's a lot of questions that he's put on. Questions that were in the yellow bit that I've highlighted, I've split so that they're all separate, and I've put in red the bits that I remember from my reading and where I think they'd go, and some references to the text. So that's a book and a page number. Okay, so now you've seen my plan, you've visualised what I'm telling you. I can tell you some other methods of planning that I've heard people do. So I've seen people do tables if it's like a for and against essay. I've seen people, if you've heard of what they're called, the words that mean discuss and that. So it'd be discuss, evaluate. If you're in A-level, your teachers have banged them out at you like the motherfucking Eagle Double G. Snoop Dogg. Like that. If I got a discuss essay, that would basically translate to a for and against argument of my opinion, because if I'm discussing what I think, so it will be a subjective essay. Now, because of that, I need to then plan my response to each thing said in the book. So I would say write out a quote and then write out my opinion of that, and do it for all different ones, and then maybe sort it into one side of the argument and the other side of the argument. And that would be pretty similar for most of the essay questions you could get. So it could be compare, it could be discuss, it could be evaluate. They all pretty much mean the same thing. So evaluate would be, you'd be comparing, you'd be contrasting, you'd be saying which ones are useful, which ones aren't useful, and basically in your plan you can just sort them into different sections. That's how I'd plan. Maybe you could comment down below how you would plan, and then I can learn from you. Probably the hardest thing about writing an essay is working out how to get the right structure, because you never know whether you're kind of waffling or whether each paragraph's in the right order, and you always get it back most times and they say this paragraph could have gone there, or this could have been a good link here, and you do get better and better. How I would suggest you do structure is, again, planning. So make sure you have your plan, because your plan, sorry, I thought there was someone in my house. So your plan needs to tell you the structure, and often when you plan you can write paragraphs that go with that section while you're planning. So I'll show you what I mean in a second, because I've got a screenshot of it, if that makes sense. So basically, if there's a bit in your plan that you think, oh, I can write that now, write it, write that paragraph and do it, and then if you keep coming back to it, you'll have all these paragraphs ready, and then you can sort them into a structure. So what I've done so far is, I showed you the plan before, but basically I've split it into all these different sections, and I'm writing my paragraphs kind of based on these sections, and then at the end I'll put it all together and choose bits that maybe shouldn't be in there or edit them so that it flows, and then decide what order it's going to be in from there. And after that I'll do my introduction and my conclusion. And by structure I mean link them together, so which could you add maybe a line on the bottom that flows into the next one, which are key themes that link together, which are key themes that contrast. So basically link each paragraph by theme, perhaps by author. So if say you did a whole point about something and then you know that there's an author that completely contrasts that, put it next. On the other hand, blah 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 says this. Okay? And that's good structure. Also, you can contrast it with your own opinion. So at the end of a paragraph, or even a new paragraph that's say only 2 sentences long, that's fine. It makes it probably more interesting to look at and interesting to read. Remembering back to doing English. You can have your paragraph and then another paragraph which is just purely your opinion, and that's fine, that's what they want, because it shows flair and it shows great understanding on your part. Rather than just reiterating what the author said, you're involving your own opinion. I have had, I think my worst essay yet was because I pretty much forgot my opinion and just kept putting quotes in. And at the time I thought it was pretty good. I was quite impressed with myself, and then when I read it back after they'd marked it, I thought, yeah, it's not. My A-level essays were better than this. Oh, the squirrel! So speaking of structure, I'd like to talk about introductions and conclusions, because often they're the hardest parts to do of the essay. So personally, I would leave them both to the end, because your intro is supposed to basically list the things you're going to say in your essay, and if you've not written it yet, quite often you don't know what's going to be in your essay because you change your mind as you write. Actually write an introduction, and what you should put in there is basically introduce the subject, define any key words. So my essay is on, and I quote, parietal art. So I would have to explain what parietal means. For anyone who wants to know, it's basically Paleolithic, but the French word. So I'd have to explain all of that. And then I would have to maybe define what could be art and what couldn't be classed as art. I'd then tease in an argument. So I have an argument that an 18th century philosopher claims that art wasn't art until the Enlightenment period, which is when people were starting to reject religion and things like that during the 18th century and 19th century. So I'd bring that in, and it's fine to bring an argument in the introduction, it's fine. You can do that. And you can then bring a converse argument in, but only briefly say it. Don't write a full paragraph on it. The best thing to do in the intro is to introduce, obviously, an argument that you're then going to do in full in the essay. If you read the academic pieces, they all say, this paper will discuss, or this essay will assess, and yeah, that's what you have to do basically. And you just list the things that you're going to say, and also you list what books you're going to talk about. So this essay will compare this author, and this article. So on to conclusions. They are pretty similar to an introduction, I have to say. However, instead of saying this essay will, you can say this essay did. The only rules for a conclusion is don't bring in any new arguments, any new books. Don't bring in don't bring in anything new unless it's completely your opinion. Your conclusions should be longer than the introduction, maybe 300 to even, no, 500. No, I don't know. Paragraph on Word would probably be about this big. This big to this big. I'm not sure how many words that is. But yeah, size 11, this big to this big, if that makes sense. So your conclusion, basically, sum up your essay, answer the question, bring in your opinion, add in a converse argument. So basically write your essay in, say, like 4 sentences. No, 5, 6 sentences. Yeah, conclusions, that's it. So one of the things that's different about a uni essay that to GCSE and A-level essays is that you have to do citations and a bibliography. So if you've done the APQ, which is the Extended Project Qualification in the UK, then you've done this already to an extent because it's slightly different. But yeah, a lot of people, this is a new thing. After each time you've talked about a topic that you've read from a book, or you've cited someone exactly, so in quote marks, you need to put a brackets, and then their surname, comma, the year the book was published, and then if you've quoted exactly, you need a colon and the page number. Okay, so I'll show you that in my work. I'll like zoom into it for you, so you can see that. But that's all you've got to do. If it's not a quote, you don't need to put the page number. So now you can see why you had to write down all the page numbers before, yes? After you've, cited all these things, you have to have a bibliography. So in your bibliography, you have, it's quite long, it's the surname, the year, and then you have the publisher, where it was published, sometimes the company, if it's a journal, say it was Current Anthropology or World Archaeology, in my case, and you'd write the journal, you'd put the page numbers you've used. If you've used chapter 3, you'd put chapter 3, if you've used chapters 2 and 3, etc. All I would say about citation is the general rule is don't use secondary citations, and what I mean by that is if in a book there's been a quote of another book, which is quite often the case because all these academic books you read have citations in the back. Citations, a bibliography in the back. So if you are quoting someone else within a book, don't say on your in your little brackets, such and such in such and such. I learned that, don't do that, because I got told I'd get marked down for that. What I'm talking about is an endnote. So an endnote is where you do it next to it and you then talk about them all at the end of the essay, whereas a footnote, what some people have to do with the little numbers like you see on Wikipedia, is where at the end of each page you have, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you list them all after that page. So a lot of books you might see have like a line kind of 3/4 down the page and then where they've got the information from. Some subjects do that. My subject doesn't, and generally the humanities don't at Oxford, as far as I'm aware. I think maybe science does it like this, but don't quote me on that because, again, I don't do science, I don't really know. This is just from what I've seen from my friends' essays. But yeah, I think that's all there is on citations, actually. Okay, so this isn't on how to, like, physically write a perfect essay. But in my experience, you can't write an essay on an empty stomach. If your tummy is rumbling really loud, or if you kind of feel a sticky headache because you've not, say, eaten breakfast yet, then you can't write a proper essay. Your head isn't in it. So you need to eat food while you're doing an essay. And this might sound daft, but have a snack with you at all times while you're writing an essay. Even in the library, if you're not allowed food, have something that can be quite silent in your pocket, like berries or, I don't know, like, no, don't eat breadsticks, that's too loud. I don't know, fruit's probably the best option in the library because it's quiet, or like a smoothie or a protein shake or something. To keep your brain fueled, you need that energy at all times. So I am going to show you some of the things that I have been eating whilst I made this essay now. Pro peach and pear yogurt, porridges, half a scoop of protein powder, 1 tablespoon of chia seeds to 3 tablespoons water. But not least, I'm going to talk about dealing with procrastination. Hello and welcome back to How to Procrastinate with me, because I think this is possibly the hardest thing. Have I said that already? Yeah, I think I have, but this is the new hardest. The hardest thing about writing an essay or studying in general is procrastination. I just tried to put like my eyebrow stuff on because I bought a new one, and it was the biggest fail of 2017. I'm telling you, it's so hard to stay focused for a long period of time. I think I've forgotten how to write. I am not the best at dealing with procrastination myself. Going dark and I've literally done nothing else. Do your work. My tips do work for me when I can be bothered to use them. Sometimes your mind is just not in it, and then you do have to take, say, the afternoon off if you have time. If you don't, I would say just take a break and get back to it. So in those breaks that you have, I would recommend 20 to 30 minutes, even up to an hour if you're absolutely frazzled, which sometimes you are. Go for a walk, go outside. If there's a gym right next to you, spend half an hour in there. Make something to eat. Do things that are active, that are going to get your, like, the other part of your brain moving, so you're not tiring out the side that has your eyes or whatever. I don't do science. So you need to get your muscles going, your blood pumping throughout your whole body again, because chances are you've been sat down for hours, and that's not good in itself. So when you exercise, it releases endorphins, it puts you in a better mood, your energy actually increases, especially if you have like a little meal afterwards, and then it gets you right back into doing it. Saying that, don't overdo it, because then you won't feel like coming back to it afterwards. So basically, find a different environment. So if you've been studying in your room, take half an hour just walking outside in the fresh air, and then go to the library, because it feels like you haven't actually been doing work yet, because you haven't been sat in the library, if that makes sense. And vice versa, if you've been in the library all day, take half an hour out and go and finish it in your room, because it feels like it's your downtime. Yeah? My big tip as to what not to do, because this is what I do and it doesn't work, is staying on the computer. Because if you then get into Netflix or get into YouTube, you then get into the next YouTube video and the next and the next, and suddenly you're in the side of YouTube where it's like 26 minutes fail videos, and you sat there for the whole 26 minutes. Don't get me wrong, this is real life, and then you've done absolutely nothing functional with your day, apart from having a good laugh. And then you've probably got a headache, your eyes are probably sore from watching the screen all day, and you could have been spending that time getting up and actually doing something. I think that's the end now. I think I've covered everything. If there's something I haven't covered, then comment it down below, message me on Instagram. I will answer all of your questions. I hope I haven't rambled on too long, and if you have enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up and comment down below maybe the things that you do, or the ways you procrastinate, the ways you write a good essay. Give some tips to other people watching this as well as myself. And yeah, I hope you have a good day. So like, comment, subscribe. Love you guys.